it's normally when you have that trauma, like you said, you get this awakening. It's like you're alive, and it's almost like it's an awakening from a much higher spiritual level to say, well, how comes I'm still here? I should be, say, dead, or it's like I've been given a second chance, and then that's when the trigger comes in. The kicker to say, well, hang on a second.
Right.
Okay, what do I, and then it all kind of fits into place.
Right. Very factor that would have triggered their trauma and helped to create that personality type is the very emotion that would trigger the awakening. So if you were triggered into looking at life as being unfair as a child, right? Because you felt afraid, there would be some fearful activity in your older years or your more mature years that's going to trigger you back to your true self, to your true spiritual identity. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. So it's never a matter of right or wrong, right? There's some people who make decisions in a space of anger that really helps to turn their entire life around. No, they don't stay in that space, right? But it serves its purpose in the process. So it's that came to my mind based on what you said. It's like something happens and you're like, who am I? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I actually experienced that quite some time back. Like I knew, like as you say, you have to go through certain things, situations, and then it got to a point for me, and I was like, hang on a sec, you have to take stock of your life, because you reach that point. And it was like, and I always knew that I was spiritual, and I knew at an older age I would have to delve into it more, to find out what because it kept tugging at me inside. It kept tugging at me, and I was just like, I need to explore this. And so it did call me.
It calls you towards it. It's one of those things that you just know.
Yeah.
It was calling me. It's hard to ignore too.
Yes.
It's hard to ignore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna
go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, as I was reaching my 50s, I was, when like when God gives you, he gives you like little signs. So I was always going past like either Jehovah's Witness, or I was, a man standing preaching in the high street. And I was just like, when I was getting these like callings, and I was like, you know what, God's, something's calling me. And then I left it, you think, I'll just, you put it on the back burner kind of thing. And then it kept happening to me, and I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. So yeah, and then that's when I became more spiritual, and to understand the my spirituality in the spiritual world and stuff.
Interesting. Which, what you just said resonates, because we're trained as human beings to place people in a box. But when you're being called and when you're being guided, you realize that everything becomes a teacher to you. It doesn't matter what box or category or group that particular person or situation may be associated with. It starts calling you. So you said you see different people preaching. I'm sure they were all from different religions, and one group would think that they were better than the next. But for you, every one of them was a sign, right? And so that's something that occurs as well, is that life starts speaking to you from all different angles, And I'm not sure what your background is, but for me, at first, the difficulty was making sense of what was coming to me based on my programming, my previous programming. Because again, I came from a religious background that projected that particular religion was the only true way, right? So everything that I sought to, every sign that came to me and everything that I thought to make sense of, I was doing it through those lenses. which is very difficult because it never makes sense, right? And then life starts speaking to you, and only when you open up to, okay, this is the universe speaking to me, and you look for the answers, they start coming to you from all different angles, you know, and it puts you in a position of advantage too, because now you're seeing it through the eyes of Source or God, and not necessarily through human construct. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that's deep.
Yeah. All of this, you know, that I think the key for empaths and spiritual healers is to use this, what we're talking about, and literally transfer it into every area of our life without hesitation, right? So we know all of this, and intuitively we can feel it. We know that it's true, and then life continues to present themselves to us. I actually feel like people who get called to this type of work, your experiences tend to be more diverse than the average person.
Yeah.
Literally, so that you can be a walking example and demonstrate how this thing really works. And it really takes consistently grounding ourselves and applying what we know in every situation. I'm so excited that we're having this conversation.
Me too, it's nice. It's nice.
Because in every walk of life, it's gold. It's literally gold. This is what wealthy people do, right?
Yeah.
They've had the ability to harness this energy and make it work for them to produce abundance.
And you know, I was meditating yesterday morning, and one of the things that the prayers that I wrote down that came to me was allow money to flow to me and through me in the same capacity of love.
Yes.
It's all energy. It's energy.
Yeah.
You know, we talked, I think on one of the calls that you, I think one of the calls that you did, Constant, did we talk about how our approach to money and how we see money, and you know, our relationship with money, and how in the religious realm, the religious settings, they'll talk about the love of money is the root of all evil, and in the same breath they'll say, well, shun the appearance of evil. So you're subconsciously telling yourself to shun money. You know. And if I'm dating you, if I'm interested in you and I'm dating you, but but you're the root of all evil, would you want to come around me?
Exactly.
No thanks.
So it's like think about, like, how do you feel about it, and how do you approach it? And money, it's an energy. Everything is energy, right? And energy is not created or destroyed. It's passed from one object to the next, right? And you need to make yourself a conduct to be able to hold that energy, right? You need to be on the same vibration of money, and you need to, it's not a matter of worshiping it, but you know, you honor it and you bless it as it comes to you, and you bless it as you give it to others. Right? So the same energy that the money's leaving you, because of the karmic laws, we know it's going to come back to you sevenfold, tenfold. Right?
It's that, and you're absolutely right, and I love that, and I love what the everything that you said, and where just wants to add to that, it's the universal law. The universal laws, the law of attraction, is everything that you put out into the world, to the universe, has to come back at you.
It must. And it's
so if you're and the rule, say the rule of thumb is, you've got to give to others first.
I want to speak to the rule of thumb where it talks about giving to others first. What I've learned is you have to give to yourself first. You have to build yourself up first, because if you don't build your own coffers, you have nothing to offer. Right? And the thing about some people have a hard time receiving. They want to give, but they have a hard time receiving. But you can't have one without the other. It's like the yin and the yang. It's kind of like breathing out without inhaling.
Right.
You will die.
And,
You
and,
have,
and
so
the-
you have to be a gracious and willing to receive in abundance for you to be
Right.
able
Yeah.
to even give in abundance,
Right.
right? You
Yeah.
can't give what you don't have.
and
Yeah.
actually, go
On
ahead.
top of that, when somebody is giving from you and you are telling them no, you are cutting them off from their blessing, because that's the karmic law.
That's what I was
If
gonna
people
say.
aren't able to give, they're not going to be able to receive. So
Mhm.
if somebody's giving to you and you're not receiving it, they're not able to give and receive back sevenfold and tenfold. So you
You're
have to be
robbing them of the
gracious and
opportunity.
open. Yes,
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to give.
Yeah. And do you
Definitely.
know, while you guys are talking, I mean, I just love it. And I could go on and on for ages about this topic.
Right.
So, you know, it's you're right in everything that you say. It's also, you do have to work on yourself first.
Right.
You know, the personal self-development, who you are, you know, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? And, you know, if you can, and rightly so, you know, you have to learn to be accepting, but you do have to give first to others for it to come back to you. You don't take
Oh,
for
I get you.
yourself, because
Not
nothing will
going-
come to you.
Okay. Right.
But you know what I think would be really good is, because it all comes from your mindset. See, we can talk and talk and talk and talk. But I think a lot of people in the world, they don't realize that it all comes from your mind. And when you understand the basic laws of attraction, you know, what you put out is what you get back. And this is all changing your mindset, your attitude, the way that you value money. Like, money is a tool. And how it's supposed to be used, it's supposed to be respected, to use it to elevate you, to get you to the place higher than where you are now.
Right.
Not to use it every month when you get paid to say, great, I've got X amount of money, now let's go and spend.
Right.
And go out and have a good time. That's not how to value money and be grateful for it.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
because that's where the solutions come. When you're focused on the problem, the solution doesn't come in that moment, because that's where your vibration is, on the problem, right? But when we start shifting our focus from the problem to solutions, which we've been talking for the last almost an hour, right? We've been talking about solutions and mindset. Then the downloads start happening and you're actually getting tangible solutions to deal with the issue at hand, right?
Yeah.
So I love that.
And you actually touched on something. And it made me realize, I thought I was kind of okay with it, but I knew I was still kind of sort of wavering. But you touched on something and I thought, you know what, I need to work on that a little bit more. So I have a real problem. I'm a big giver, and I'll help anybody, you know, but I do tend to waver on my receiving end. But if somebody said to me, like just recently, I've been helping quite a few people and they need to pay me for my services, so on the coaching side, and I'm like, oh, you know, okay, yeah. So I'm like, yeah, just put it in my bank account.
That part has to do with acknowledging and recognizing your worth.
Yeah. So also what you're saying is, and that's all cool, but it's also when you say like knowing your worth, it's like not being afraid to tell that person, well, this is what I charge.
Yes.
And not offering, like, because when I find that when other coaches, and I've like spoken to them and researched this, it's like you've got to be so like together with yourself that you can say, well, this is what I charge.
Unapologetic.
You know? Yeah, and not offer, and if the, like not offer a discount, because I feel when you offer a discount, you're lowering yourself.
Yes.
And you're lowering,
diminishing the value of what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like devaluing the money's in your hand already, and
yes,
devaluing that. Yeah.
Definitely.
And you, so when you are like, let's go back to that point you made about taking action and giving 110% of yourself, and you're putting it into that. When you offer your services after putting 110% of your services, and you're giving it, and you're doing that with an individual, or you're providing the service for an individual, that 110% is multiplied, and they are very the ripple effects of the work that you have put into that individual, they value it. It's kind of like, it's kind of like, let's look at superstars, Beyonce, right? She got her beehive. She's really good at what she does. And if I don't know if you ever looked at like one of her documentaries following how she prepares for her events, she gives 100 and 200%, very particular. She really owns and loves her craft, and you can tell in her performances, you can feel the love. And so people go to her concerts, they buy her tickets because they value what she has to put out there. You know, Beyonce is not going to be like, oh, you're going to get this, unless it's like a giveaway, you know, but her tickets are expensive. They're top line, because when you go, you're going to get a top-notch experience, right? And people will pour into you because they appreciate what you're pouring into them. It's the same thing with Michael Jackson. Right? Michael Jackson didn't need all the marketing that he got. They went to him because of the quality of performance that he will give every time. He'll hit the mark. He'll hit the mark, and he had the following. I had a conversation with a friend about Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen and his mega church. He has these mega churches. In a lot of churches, these small community churches, you realize that 75% of regular churches are barely members. Church members are barely making ends meet in the regular community churches. But in Joel Osteen, his church is full of entrepreneurs, millionaires, because Joel Osteen is constantly pouring into them the prosperity and telling them, you know, you are the head and not the tail, the cattle upon 1,000 hills. These are what he's pouring into them. They're reaping the benefits, and then they're blessing him. And that's coming from his overflow. It's coming from his overflow. So as you focus on what you're doing, and you give what you're calling 110%, people are going to be blessed from it, and they're gonna in turn bless you tenfold. So like when you put your prices, those are your prices, like that's what you were.
Hey guys, so you just listened to part of this. There's some highlights that I wanted to point out, right? People talk about spirituality and what that looks like, and you'll hear all types of stuff, the woke, the conscious. And again, those are just labels that we use, right? Even the term spirituality. We are spiritual beings. We're always having a spiritual experience, no matter what phase of your life you're at. You are a spiritual being on this earth, right? But there's a time when we become reawakened. There's a time when we become reborn. There's a time when we begin to remember who we were when we came into this world. And a few things happen. You heard it highlighted. One, there's something that triggers you. For some people, something that really shook you to your core, right? It could be just an awareness that there's more to this life. It could be a death of a family member. It could be a breakup. Something triggers you, and you start asking some very deep questions. And for some people, if you were like me, you went on this logical, intellectual discovery, but it should not end there, because it points back here, right? For many people, it's going down this discovery of uncovering lies within certain social construct, right? But it should not stop there. It's not just an intellectual thing. It leads you back to your soul and who you are, right? You begin to see signs. Like she pointed out, she started to see people on the side of the road, and it just woke her up more to some level of the spirituality, right? Others, you begin to see numbers. For some people, you start hearing the same thing over and over again. I remember someone saying everywhere they went, there was a billboard that stated something. Not the same billboard, but the recurring messages could not be denied, which led her back to doing the internal work. You start to attract individuals, right? Sometimes it's professionally, like a coach, a therapist, right? Also, it could be people that naturally get drawn to you, who serve as teachers along the way, right? Now, I want to say this. When you attract these individuals, the aim is not to look for another follower, right? They should point you back to yourself. They should point you back to recognize the light that you are. It shouldn't be somebody that you're looking to as a second or demigod, okay? But many times, as you're seeking to navigate through life and you're reawakening to who you are, you'll be led to certain guides, teachers, coaches, mentors who are there to simply assist you on this path. And for many individuals, you'll reach a certain point and you're like, you know what? I got it from here, and that's good. Okay, so I wanted to point that out. And then the other aspect you heard us talking about is the fact that this way of living transfers into everything that you're doing. It's who you are. It's who you've always been. It's just more intentional now that you're aware. So what does that look like? You don't separate your meditation life from your work life. You don't separate, who you are while you're interacting in relationships with who you are while you discover more cosmic truths. It's just who you are, and that emanates from you. And when individuals come into contact with you, they will feel, they will see, they will recognize that spirit in you, and it will draw them as well to awaken that part of themselves that has been laying dormant. So I wanted to point that out. As you walk throughout this journey, you seeing this video, you may recognize some of these signs as well. And I want to encourage you, sometimes it can get really difficult, right? But always remember that source within you knows who you are. It's always reflecting that back to you. And many times we miss the signs because we're focusing on the problems instead of the solutions. And the solutions are always available to you. Love you guys.